and welcome to Horsham FC. This wonderful football club was founded back in 1881, and over that time, my goodness, it has been on quite a journey. In recent times too, there has been lots of exciting things going on. The club is thriving, successful on the pitch and off of it as well. We've come down today to learn a little bit more about what the club has been doing around its volunteer workforce. Unfortunately, Tom hasn't been able to join me today, but FA Club consultant Laura Smith, she's inside, and I understand she's even got the kettle on waiting for us. So without further ado, let's go and find out more. Into the incredible clubhouse upstairs with a cup of coffee and the opportunity to catch up with Laura, FA Club consultant here at Horsham FC. It is a wonderful, wonderful football club. How did you first get involved?
My first involvement with the club was probably a couple of seasons ago. I was asked to support the club through the FA Club programme. So I came down to meet the board, and it was brilliant actually my first visit because I had all the directors here to talk through the programme and have a bit of an intro session about the club. And we've just kind of gone from strength to strength from there.
What were your first impressions of the club?
Oh, beautiful stadium, great people. I mean, just the very fact that all the directors were here to find out more about the programme shows how kind of willing and keen they are to develop. Gave me a lot of their time and insight. Some of the guys here have been involved for a very long time. So really positive experience, lovely facilities, very fortunate to have what they've got, but they've put a lot of time and effort in to get there. So yeah, really good first impression.
We've got this series going on to create a bit of a focus around the non-league system, the part of the pyramid that is so, so special, really unique in the sense of its opportunities, but also its challenges as well. What challenges did Horsham have? What were the directors saying to you, look, we need help on this desperately?
I think probably time. I mean, they do have a lot of volunteers here, but there's always more and more that clubs want to do, and they always want to do it as quickly as possible. So I think probably time is a challenge. They're always having to work to the next match day. There's always something to work towards. They never really had a great deal of time to kind of step back and plan. So we've been doing a piece on that and got some exciting things coming out on that fairly imminently as well.
That's brilliant, because I think that is definitely a challenge that is felt at Horsham, Borough Rangers, Marine, across the country. How much of a focus have Horsham now put on business planning, strategic thinking to help with their sustainability moving forwards?
They have definitely put more of a focus on it in recent years. I mean, they've moved to this stadium in the last 5 years, so they've had to kind of get that bedded in and get themselves set up here. But they're now taking it to the next level and thinking more about the long-term plan and, importantly, what sort of structures they need to be able to deliver that.
It's really hard, isn't it? Because especially if you're in a non-league environment where the demands are massive and you're relying on volunteers' times as well. As you were saying, it's almost getting from match to match to match. Yeah. What were the immediate suggestions that you made and directed the team here towards to just help them find that focus?
Well, we got the fan experience company down here to do a bit of a review on what happens on a match day, and the club was really engaged in that process. And actually, I came down and we had a bit of a review of the report that came out of that with some of the match day committee. So again, I think there was probably 6 or 7 individuals who came to that session where we reviewed kind of the feedback that they've been given, and I'm sure they've implemented much of that moving forwards. And actually with their cup run and the amount of people they had coming down here for some of the games this season, it was really good timing.
Yeah, the timing couldn't have been better, could it? It's really interesting as well, because sometimes when you look at the non-league game and the way it's evolving and the new standards that are coming in, it's hard to keep always striving for more and more. But it seems to me that Horsham are a football club that have kept their eyes and ears open and are happy to take on that feedback. They want to improve, which is so, so valuable.
Yeah, most definitely. As I say, the very first meeting that I came down here for, where we essentially were getting to know the club programme and I was helping them understand what it could do for them as a club. There was real engagement. There was 6 or 7 here just to talk about the actual programme itself. But that's an ongoing thing for the club. They have so many people around the club day to day, and a lot of good support from their volunteers that are all, pulling in the same direction to take the club forward.
It'll be really interesting to see how these episodes are received from volunteers, directors, chairpeople in the non-league system, because most clubs would like to label themselves as ambitious and looking forward to a bright future. I just wanted to get your thoughts on how actually for some clubs, being in the position they're in within the football pyramid and really solidifying that can still be ambitious. It can still be an optimistic future. It doesn't always have to be linked with promotion and climbing up the football pyramid.
Sure. I mean, obviously the first team performances are what attracts a lot of people to the club in terms of fans, but also a lot of the kind of people's perception of the club is what the first team are doing. But there's so much more to clubs of this nature in the National League system. You know, they're running their operations 7 days a week. I mean, here today they've got kids football on the pitch, they've got a meeting downstairs. So actually there's not much talk about the first team today, but there's still a lot going on around the club. So in terms of ambition, I think having that kind of operation where they are 7 days a week and successful at everything that they do is really important too.
I'm so glad you made the point about the first team, because again, part of the purpose of this series is of course to acknowledge that first teams are really important to the running of NLS clubs, but every club we visited has had an infrastructure underneath it, whether it be around their facility, the youth teams as well. And ironically enough, each of the club's first teams have had promotions, have had fantastic FA Cup runs, but that hasn't been the sole focus. That hasn't been where all of the investment's been going. So what words of advice would you give to clubs to have that more holistic overall approach to running their football club?
I think they need to appreciate that in order to have a successful first team, and it's essentially top of the pyramid of the club, they have to have a strong foundation, and they'll achieve that if they are doing everything at the base level properly. And again, through engaging with the local communities, through getting the young people involved in the football club, through being able to attract more fans because they're offering a really positive match day experience. All that combined is going to end up in more money to be able to spend on the first team, and perhaps take that first team forward up through the pyramid too.
Laura, you also have expertise specifically around workforce and volunteering, which marries up perfectly to the challenges that Horsham have had here. Yeah. I know it's a challenge that's faced by many clubs, not only in the non-league game as well. What advice would you give to clubs that are struggling to attract volunteers?
It is a real challenge. When clubs do get it right, such as Horsham, and they kind of acknowledge and recognise the volunteers that they have, it can be a real advantage. But some clubs are so used to relying on a few people who have given unbelievable amounts of time and effort to the club over the years. But at some point, they need to have more people coming through to take on the baton, if you like. And there are tools out there for clubs to be able to try and recruit new volunteers, and there's some kind of really innovative ways of doing that. But I think more and more so now, we need to make sure that we're recognising what the volunteers are doing for the clubs. People have less time to commit, so the more clubs can kind of recognise the impact that those volunteers have, I think the better.
We've come down on a Wednesday morning where there's a regular group of volunteers who get down together here at Horsham to look after the amazing facility. Once you attract the volunteers, that's one challenge. Keeping them is another. But what Horsham seems to have done so well here is build a real sense of community and that you're a part of something. We've walked through the door immediately and been greeted so warmly with so many friendly faces. It's really simple, but actually building that sense of community is a really easy way to keep volunteers.
Oh, absolutely. And the more you kind of recognise and do for them, the more they will do for you. They've got a nice social atmosphere amongst their volunteers here, and they want to support one another with what the club is trying to do, but also to be able to look back and think, oh yeah, we got that stadium ready for match day. And to hear people saying, what a great place it is when they're coming to visit, I'm sure all that goes into kind of the volunteer experience too.
We're also here today to put a bit of a focus on the marketing and the communication side, because there's a wonderful team here that help promote the football club, whether it be on social media, through the website, club programme and so on. It often gets really overlooked by clubs. I always use the analogy, it's like having a shop window but sort of a curtain over it. If you don't have the volunteers helping showcase your football club, success is going to be quite limited. Give me your take on what Horsham do here.
Well, I think they've got some really strong media and promotional stuff. Their website's great. The matchday programme we heard this morning has already achieved some really great results in terms of its performance off the pitch. And social media is obviously really key too. So they're putting a lot of input and investment into those different areas of promotion, and I think that's only evident from when you look at all the different channels.
There's an overlap, isn't there, between that part of the game, that theme of this programme in particular, and attracting younger volunteers as well who have the skill set and want to harness that experience. There's a real opportunity for non-league clubs to appeal to younger people to volunteer through that sphere perhaps.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, young people have far more understanding of IT and social media than I do, and I'm sure that, you know, for many people of my kind of generation and above, that's going to be the case, and it's only going to continue, I think, that gap. So the more we can engage with young people, I mean, universities are obviously a great source of young people and students to come out and support with grassroots football clubs, even if it's kind of for specific projects rather than a long-term basis, because obviously being young people, they want to go off and do different things. But being able to find projects that those young people can support with, particularly on kind of social media and video and things like that, I think is really good.
Well, Laura, thank you for welcoming us to the football club today. We're going to go off and meet some more of the volunteers. But my final question to you, what one piece of advice would you give to someone watching this to take away and instill at their football club or even their league if they're a volunteer within a league?
I think my advice would be listen to people. You know, don't think you know everything. We certainly don't know everything. We're just offering a little bit of advice along the way. But take on board everyone's comments, listen to the fans, listen to the volunteers, and I'm sure that together, you know, you can all really take the football club forward.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. Right, without further ado, let's have a little look around the football club and find some more people to talk to. Well, it's straight into the dressing room, and I am delighted now to be joined by Horsham FC Director and Club Secretary Jeff. Jeff, thank you so much for the lovely welcome here today.
Pleasure.
First things first, tell us a little bit about your role at the football club.
Well, I'm Club Secretary, which basically is the main administrator, if you like, and I tend to deal with all communication with the authorities, with the Football Association, with the league, and obviously with other clubs, although we now have a match secretary who's employed by the club who does quite a bit of that work as well. But I've taken on a more advanced role of being a director as well, and that means I'm there to work with the other members of the board in terms of driving the club forward and sorting out strategy and priorities and that sort of thing. So, you know, it's dealing with a whole range of different issues.
Keeps you busy, I suspect.
It does, yes, and you know, you do a certain amount of work down at the club and then spend a lot of time at home. You know, the amount of bumps that comes through electronically these days is amazing. I remember in an earlier incarnation, one guy said to me, he said the worst thing that was ever invented was a photocopier, because before that no one could do a note or a memorandum with more than 4 copies. And they were carbon copies, and that was it. And of course nowadays, not only have you got the photocopier, but also you've got the internet, emails, social media, etc. And it's so easy for someone who's proud of what they've done to disperse it to 3,000 different people, you know, and you're at the receiving end of that.
It's demanding, particularly the club secretary role. You've been involved in the football club for 50 years, which is incredible. I don't know where to begin. Tell us how the love affair started.
I first came to a game, my father took me to a game when I was 5 at our old ground. And I can't remember much about that other than the fact I think it was, in those days we were in the Metropolitan League, and it was one of the big London clubs who had their 3rd team in it. And I can't remember who it was or the result. I do remember that we won penny on the ball and got a voucher to go along to the local hardware shop, and we got a torch. So that's all I can remember about that. But in my teens, I became much more of a supporter. I wasn't very good at football, and eventually I did do some refereeing, and I was probably even worse at being a referee. But amazing enough, I quite enjoyed administration. And so the then chairman, I used to travel on the train up to London with him, and he kept on badgering me to come and join the club, and then persuaded me to become treasurer at a fairly tender age. So that's how I got into it. The treasurer's job I passed on, but did other jobs, other roles within the club. And I've been involved with the club doing, you know, either at the centre of it or on the periphery for all that time, and it's been great. it's had its moments. We've had times when we were nearly went out of business because we hadn't got any finance, and then you come to the present day where I still pinch myself every time I come down here and think these facilities, the fact that we got these wonderful crowds, it makes it all worthwhile. How did we get here from where we were? It's been wonderful.
You should be very proud, and you got here because of countless hours of hard work and graft. I wanted to ask, what has kept your motivation to volunteer your time for as long as you have?
Well, a club is about people, and it's the people I've got to know. It's the people who come in here on a Saturday afternoon in their thousands now, or over 1,000 now, and whole families right down from great grandfather to the little baby. They're all coming along and enjoying themselves, and they want to talk to you, and I want to talk to them. We make it as welcoming as we can. Fabulous volunteers, as you'll be finding out, and so on this, during this talk, and it's been wonderful just coming across those people really, and they keep you going. It's the people. It's what it's all about.
You've mentioned that you've become a director at the football club. You've made that transition from volunteering to director. It would be really interesting to know how you find that role and how since your thinking has shifted to opening your mind up to how the club needs to operate strategically.
Yeah, we had a strategic plan which basically was to get where we are now. So in other words, we were competitive within the Assyrian League. We had a broad approach to football across the club. So we've got the youth teams, we've got a ladies team or girls team, women's and girls team that we've started up and so on. And we're looking at disability football and walking football and all sorts of other things. So we looked to get to that. And in terms of that, it was very much a making decisions as we went that took into account how we could fund things, how we can come up with a sustainable club, which is the crucial thing. And I think we've achieved that. We got here now, and our aim is each year to break even financially. And we're doing that. And it's because we've got all these activities going on, we make the use of these facilities. We're able to bring in income, which subsidises the cost of football, because football at our level has to be subsidised in some way. It's either someone sticking their hand in the pocket, which we haven't got, and we haven't got that sort of structure, or alternatively, you raise income from every element of what you do to actually fund the football, which attracts people to come in and enjoy it, which in turn then attracts commercial interest and brings in the sort of money that you do. I mean, before we moved to this place, we hadn't got a home. We would be delighted if we got 200 people on a Saturday to come and watch us. We were playing down at Lancing in the Sussex County FA headquarters, which is a nice ground in itself. And our turnover was just over £100,000 a year. And now it's £1 million a year. And we're doing it on volunteers with a couple of staff. So we've got probably as far as we can in this stage. At this stage, we now need to look to the future. What's the next stage going to be? And I think we need to supplement that volunteer labour with a little bit more in terms of staff, of the right sort of staff to actually take us on to a more professional setup.
On that note then, Jeff, because there'll be a lot of clubs within the NLS system watching this who are in that very predicament where you acknowledge how large you've grown and that you are a business. You're a football club that operates and turns over a lot of money. It can be a bit daunting making that step to employing staff, but it feels like it's almost inevitable and certainly a positive step for the future, and that all-important word, sustainability.
Yeah, I think the volunteers, they do a fantastic job. I mean, they really do a fantastic job, and we want them to continue doing those jobs. And it's interesting what one of our colleagues was saying earlier on, that volunteers shouldn't be pressurised into doing a specific job that they don't want to do. For example, any volunteering is great. Someone once said to me, and I know this doesn't happen these days, but he said, you know who the most valuable person in the club is? It's the guy that you know is going to take the cups of tea into the dressing room at half time and that sort of thing, because you know there's a tick in the box, it's been done. Yeah. And it's that sort of thing. But we're pretty stretched as a board. The chairman lives and works at the moment anyway in Gibraltar. He comes back every so often. There's his son has got a high power. He's on the board, and he's got a high powered job in Google. The finance director is great. He's not been all that well in recent times, but he does a good job behind the scenes. There's me, and we've taken on a couple of others now. But we've been really stretched, and we had not really had anyone who's been able to stand back and just think to themselves, how do we direct everyone or push everyone into the directing and focusing on how do we get to the next stage? And that's the point we're at, and that's where we need to get someone in. And you're not going to get a volunteer, or we haven't been able to find a volunteer who can spend the time and has the aptitude to do that. So we'll be taking on a general manager in the next few weeks, and that will be that role. Exciting times, an exciting appointment, and thank you for being so open and transparent about where you're at as a football club, because I know, again, there'll be many clubs across the country in a similar position to you. So let's take it back then. If you could give Jeff 50 years ago a little bit of advice, knowing what you do now, having dedicated so much of your life to the non-league game, what piece of advice would you give? My first thing is that you don't have to take all the problems on your own shoulders. There are other people there that you should share this with. And I think probably there have been times in the past when I thought to myself, well, I'm the only one who can sort this out, so I take on rather more than I should. As I said, a club is about people. You learn from the people. And so as you go through the journey, whatever your journey might be, involved with the football club or anyone else, any other organisation, learn from other people, learn from your own mistakes, and then you will build up a sort of background where you have the advice and experience to offer to other people. And I think that is the crucial thing. The other thing is, don't underestimate your own talents, because I certainly, and I think other people, we do things and we think we know all the flaws in what we're doing, whereas other people don't notice it. And actually they value the advice and experience that you can offer. So they're the key things, I think, that I would say I'd learn. Finally, you must get enjoyment out of it somewhere along the line, even if it has its frustrations. Enjoyment's on it, and when you look back over the years, you must have a sense of pride. Well, I hope you have a sense of pride, Jeff, with all that you've achieved at this football club. Thank you so much for hosting us today. No problem.
And as Jeff mentioned, there are some amazing volunteers here at the football club, so let's go out and talk to some of them. Oh my God, it smells so good. I love the smell of burger bun. Well, after a lovely lunch outside, we are back indoors now, and I'm delighted to be joined by some of the club's volunteers, Mark, Bryn and Charlie. Thank you so much for such a lovely, warm welcome here. It's clear to me why you'd want to give up your time to this wonderful football club, but tell us a little bit about your journey and why you do volunteer at Horsham.
I think flattery had part of it, as part of the answer, to be honest. I was first asked if I'd joined the board several years ago when we were trying to obtain and build this ground. And I think I was so flattered to be asked, I just said yes without thinking about it. But obviously that doesn't keep you coming back. And I think over the years we've all just become so proud of the club we've got here, both physically and also the people here. I love coming down on Wednesday. I live in London and I drive down every week to come down and work with these guys, and I think it is just the sort of the fellowship and the banter and the friendships you make here, and the satisfaction of being able to come down and do something really practical, and you've achieved something at the end of the day, which a lot of us don't do in our normal lives.
Bryn, is it a similar story for you, the sense of being a part of a team here? I mean, it was such a privilege to have lunch with you all, and I got that sense like you're a team like the first team out there.
Well, we're all a big team, first of all, but partly echoing Mark, but I retired nearly 3 years ago, and I knew I needed, if you like, some structure to my week. And I was a season ticket holder, so I just rang up the club. Do you welcome volunteers? Yes, you do. So that was the start, but then it's exactly what Mark said. Once you get involved, it's the fellowship. It's about, I think, you actually benefit from your own personal well-being. I can genuinely say I've made some new friends in the 3 years I've been here. And you just enjoy being part of the bigger team that enables Horsham's success on the pitch. And we've seen the club grow each year. So.
Yeah, it's no surprise when you meet people like yourselves to see that success on the pitch. It goes courtesy of a lot of volunteering hours. Charlie, I know you have a role within the media team as well. What kind of volunteering do you do at the club?
Well, I'm here on a Wednesday morning. I've only been doing that relatively recently. I've just earned my orange T-shirt.
Sorry to interrupt. You have to fill bins for 3 months.
I was going to say, like, what are the levels to get yourself an orange?
The apprenticeship is actually emptying bins. So.
Well, if you were here at 10 o'clock, you'd see or 9 o'clock, the first task every Wednesday morning is literally emptying all the bins from around the ground and then sorting through them. Because we started off trying to get people to put the right stuff in the right bin, and of course it never works. So we do that ourselves on a Wednesday, and the first hour is 8 people kind of going through the bins and putting everything in the right one. So yeah, the Wednesday morning thing I started to do recently. I live in Brighton, which is 35-40 minutes away. And I used to do something different on a Wednesday morning, and I changed that because I wanted to come and join in, because my brothers, one of whom lives in London, very close to Mark, and one who lives in Horsham, they were coming. And I thought, actually, why am I not? Because I was already volunteering, as you say, in the media team. And it just adds a whole new perspective to it, because the media thing can actually be sort of slightly isolating in a sense, because you're sitting there in the media box and you're not mingling with everybody else on match day, and you're almost watching the game, I don't know, what would you call it, sort of dispassionately. And I'm wanting to be leaping up and punching the air when we score, but I'm not, because I'm typing. And I feel so much more a part of the club as a volunteer. I watched my first game in 1969. So I've been a supporter of the club from a distance for a very, very long time, but being a volunteer, you simply just feel more part of it. And the depth of my connection with the club is so much greater as a consequence of doing a lot more than just standing on the terraces and cheering.
So deep-rooted, I get a sense of that from meeting you immediately. Mark, tell people watching this, the Wednesday morning club, because we came here on a Wednesday specifically because we heard wonderful things. How did it originate? What goes on a weekly basis?
There are a number of people that came. I think you've met probably 12, 13, 14 today, and that's a pretty average number. And we are quite diverse in that we're all doing lots of different things. So everybody has their favourite jobs. The binfluencers, they come along and work on the bins, but people are doing maintenance around the ground. I think it probably was engendered because we have got such a new ground here. We moved in here after 10 years of homelessness. And I think we were all very proud to have our new home. And we're very proud of it too. We've improved it since we came here. So we want to keep it looking pristine. And I think everybody is keen that they, repair things or paint things, and everybody has things that they do. I get involved in doing some of the hedging and some of the horticulture around the woodland. So how did it start? I'm not entirely sure how. I think it was sort of self-engendered. Self-engendered. It's just one of those things that grew organically. Yeah. Wednesday was a good day because we hadn't got matches on. And I think people came down and we passed the qualification test, which was to empty bins, drink tea, eat burgers, and talk rubbish about football. I think that's really it. And I think what happened was it became so enjoyable to be here, especially on a sunny day, sitting around outside and yarning. It's just become a thing we all look forward to. I certainly look forward to it.
And I think we need to fess up. It's about a 3-hour session, of which probably 2 hours is work.
Yeah.
And an hour is chat. I think.
Is it that way round? Might be the other way round. Yeah.
But the thing that is so clear, Bryn, is that you list the tasks there, and who wants to empty out the bins? Who really wants to fix things? They're tough tasks that it's very hard to find people to pay to do, let alone to volunteer to do. And people watching this will be having struggles attracting a volunteer workforce. And we kind of joked about the orange t-shirts, but there's a serious point to the sense that actually putting on that uniform, feeling a part of something, it's rewarding. And those are things that perhaps clubs could overlook.
Yeah.
That's part of it. The other thing I would say, if we're looking and other clubs are struggling perhaps to get a few volunteers, one of the lovely things I find about the club is actually, if you compare it to other volunteering schemes, there is no pressure. You don't have to commit to X hours a week. Do what you can. You're thanked for doing what you can. You're made to feel welcome. And that, I think, engenders you to want to do more. So that's one thing I would say to other clubs. Don't necessarily try and press people to do more than they're willing to. Just try and engage with them. I think the community focus the club has is something we all buy into as well. Yeah.
Charlie, on the subject of reward and recognition, because when we look at the volunteer workforce and how do we recognise them, how important do you think it is that clubs make sure that they do that? Because it's one thing to attract volunteers, it's another thing to retain them.
Yeah, it's absolutely crucial. And as Bryn has alluded to, it's become part of our weekly routine to come here on a Wednesday. And don't think twice about it. You're not absolutely no pressure whatsoever. And I think that's the key thing. If you can engender that spirit, a genuine collective team spirit throughout the organisation, not just the focus on the football team, then people will come because people enjoy being here. And one of the things about the whole match day experience, I think the club, since we've moved here, part of the ethos has been everything we do it the best that we can do it.
Yes.
And so, talking about the media output, I think the media output and the media manager sitting over there, I think that the media output at our level is as good as anybody, without any question. I think we've got huge plaudits for the quality of the food, which we were talking about off camera just before. Everything we do, we're trying to do it really, really well, and everybody buys into that. And so when we have schemes with local schools coming in, for example, on match days, it could well be parents, younger siblings who have never shown any particular interest in football, but they have a fantastic day. And if you're stewarding on a match day, which I do when I'm not on media, you're walking around just chatting to people who've maybe never been before, and they're saying, we are having such a good day. And when you've got that sort of an atmosphere around the place, people just respond to it.
You touch upon a really good point there, and one I'd love to get your thoughts on, is that when you hear non-league sometimes, and then there's words, associated like amateur, semi-professional, it kind of gives a glaze of a lack of resource and organisation, but actually the non-league game is incredibly professional and it demands a lot. And the reason why we put this series together is to try and help those volunteers who need that professional expertise, who require that. You've all had careers before volunteering your time as well, so the club gets to benefit from all of your experience and knowledge outside of football as well.
Yes, it's absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, I was a project manager when I was working, and last year we did a lot of ground developments. So I used those skills to put together a plan which was acceptable to the funding bodies, and then to liaise between different contractors who were doing different things in different order. It's exactly what I used to do at work. So it was like falling off a log, really. But someone needs to just get in there and say, you're coming in on that date, you've got to come in on the day after, and just organise things. So I think we all probably use skills perhaps that we didn't know we had.
part of my background is customer service management. So whilst I don't tend to actually work during a game, but I will come in the morning before, on a Saturday morning or a Tuesday afternoon if we've got a Tuesday game. And it's part of what Charlie was saying about we want to offer the very best we can. So the morning before a game, we get the stadium ready. And when I do interact, it is about, from my customer service background, ensuring that our customers, if you like, have the best possible experience they can. And that's what makes us proud, I think.
Yeah.
As I said, win, draw or lose, I think we offer a good brand of football and we want to offer the best experience we can off the pitch as well.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned, coming down and doing bins. And I mean, it's not something that any of us particularly want to do. No. But if you think about someone turning up for the first time, they don't come here because we've got the best accounting system in the league, or because we're running this way or that way. They come because they think it's clean, it's safe, it's enjoyable. If those bins were overflowing and the place was dirty, they wouldn't react like that. So it's so important that those things are right. And I always said that the most important people at the club are probably the people in the car park, who are the first people they meet, because it's that first impression of, they said hello and welcome me. I felt really welcome here. I want to come back.
Sounds simple, but it's so important. And Mark, I want to ask you quickly, because I understand that you do a lot of work here at the football club around sort of the environmental, ecological projects as well. I think looking forwards for football clubs, that's going to become even more of a priority and an important point on the agenda. So tell us a little bit about how you support the club in that way.
We're really lucky here because when we built this ground, as well as having the 2 3G pitches, we've actually got a lot of ground outside the fence. We own 4 acres of woodland. So, Notts Forest don't own a forest, but we've got a wood. So it's 4 acres down there, and I spent a lot of time down there building hedges, laying hedges. I've been on courses to learn how to coppice and do things like that. So I think, like all of us, we've probably extended our skill sets as well by going into other areas. But we have quite a lot of horticulture around the perimeter in terms of trees and grass and plants. We've got a pond or a lake down at the far end of the ground, and we've planted some rare trees in the last year. They're called black poplars. They used to be really common in the country, but they became very endangered. And I think in Sussex a few years ago, there were only 8 left. They were really endangered. We got in touch with Sussex Wildlife Trust, who gave us some saplings. So we've got 8 trees growing down there at the moment, because that's an ideal, they like water. And they're also gendered, so you've got male and female plants, so you have to, they don't breed very easily. So we're looking after those really carefully to try and just to increase the biodiversity of what we've got around us. This was a golf course, and golf courses tend to be a bit, they don't like diversity, it's all grass. So we're trying to put some of that diversity back into our surroundings.
It's fascinating. I feel like I need to come back and do an extra episode just on that subject alone. That would be brilliant.
Really lovely stuff.
Look, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I get the sense that as much as Horsham Football Club needs you, there's a sense that you'd be really lost without Horsham Football Club as well. That's all right, no worries, Charlie. Am I right in saying that?
Totally. I think that's sums it up absolutely. When I think about what
There's
I do all
another football club trying
day.
to tap you up for some volunteering hours.
I stopped full-time work back end of 2020, and when I think now how I fill my time, I know it's a cliche, but I really don't know how I fit it in a day job. So much of what I do revolves around the club. Even if I'm not here, there's so much going backwards and forwards on the media side of things. We're playing twice a week. And I seldom miss a match, and I was away for a few weeks recently out of the country, so I miss some matches. But generally speaking, I wouldn't say all of my waking hours are spent thinking about Horsham Football Club, but it's never far from my thoughts.
Bryn, football clubs out there in the non-league would love to have volunteers like yourself. So what one piece of advice would you give to them to help them find people like you that will be there? They will be on their doorstep, they might just not have found them yet.
Make your volunteers welcome. Don't apply too much pressure to them. Don't necessarily ask them to do this or that. Because what I found, echoing what Charlie said, is because I don't work, the horrible jobs like emptying bins, you do willingly because you're choosing to do it, not because you have to do it. And I think that's a key difference. So Yeah, that would.
Really
My
solid
main
advice.
advice is actually offer a welcome and don't apply too much pressure.
Mark, sorry, I was just wanting to ask you a bit of a flip reversal on that. So anyone watching who actually thinks, well, they're going to be incredibly inspired by all three of you, I can tell you that. I want to go and volunteer my time. What words of encouragement would you give them to go out there and do it?
I would say you'll start off by doing it because you think you want to go and contribute something to that club. You know, we've all loved the football club because we've been supporters for years and we wanted to get more involved and we thought we were giving. I think what happens is once you get into it, you find you receive far more than you give. You know, I drive down once a week and I mess around in the woods for a few hours. But I think, what do I gain out of coming here? I gain certainly physical fitness, which, you know, I mean, you two are much, much younger than me, but, you know, as you get older, you do need to think about keeping active. I think, sorry, just going off on a tangent, a few years ago, we were all locked down during COVID. I think that changed, for a lot of us, it changed our perception of the simple things in life. And just getting out and being down here in this lovely environment once a week is so good for your mental health. There's definitely, you know, physical fitness, mental fitness. I think you get satisfaction because you can own a task. You know, there is huge satisfaction in knowing that that place is clean and that a school can come in and, you know, that they'll enjoy it. Or when we were working, were you here when we moved the old stands and we took 2 days to get those old stands out and the lorry was sinking into the mud? We worked like Trojans for 2 days, but it was so satisfying because they're now around on the community pitch. So you complete tasks. Now, often in your corporate lives, you might work on something for years and then the bosses would say, oh, we've changed our minds, we're not doing that. And you know, you just think that's 6 months of work out the window. Here, you do something, you complete it. It's hugely satisfying. And on top of that, I get to work with great people.
Just a final, like as I said, completing jobs. When we entertained Dorking here in the Cup, we built a whole fan zone ourselves. And the sense of fulfilment we got from that, and we happened to beat them as well, which put icing on the cake. But sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. I mean, I was just going to say, I could talk to you forever, and I just really thank you for the warm welcome that you've given us, for the expertise that you've shared as well. And yes, we better let you go and take that call. We don't want to take up any more of your time. Let you get your boots back on, enjoy another cup of tea, and thank you so much for all you do at Horsham FC.
Not at all. Thank you.
Well, on this episode, we have been talking about the importance of non-league clubs sharing their story to the local community and further than that as well. I'm delighted to say that I have Matt alongside me, who is the media and press officer here at Horsham FC. It is your responsibility to tell Horsham's story to the wider community. But before we get into that, I want to know a bit about your story and how you got involved in the football club.
Yeah, so I've been a Horsham fan for most of my life. I went along to a game when I was about 5-6 years old and just fell in love with it straight away, really got that non-league bug. And so I've supported as a fan since then. Went away to university and then came back, and I graduated in the same summer that we moved to this place, and it was sort of the perfect opportunity to really get involved properly and use, because I've got a degree in sport journalism, so I was able to use that and thought, what a better place to do it. And so I've been volunteering here for 5 years since then.
And what does your role entail? And I say that with a sort of tone in my voice because I imagine there is so much that you do on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. I mean, most of it is updating social media, just keeping fans informed and engaged. But also when, for instance, obviously we had Barnsley here in the FA Cup and all of that. So my role was to organise interviews for players and the manager and some fans and directors as well. So that kept me very, very busy. Just trying to organise all of that. Very full on.
Yeah, let's talk about that FA Cup run because it is incredible, and it's what's so amazing about the English football pyramid that non-league clubs like Horsham can have that magic, that can experience that. You had the ITV cameras coming here. What was it like as a volunteer to have such a busy couple of weeks?
Overwhelming. It's probably the only thing I can really say. It was just absolutely mad to be dipped into that world for a very short amount of time where it was just crazy, but great learning experience as well to come alongside the producers and executives that came down from ITV and work alongside them was a real sort of once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, reflecting on perhaps not the once in a lifetime experiences, the more routine Isthmian League experience that goes on, tell us about the buzz that comes with being involved in a non-league club.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I think what's best about it is that you do get a real sense of community, and it is a real family here. And I'm quite disattached from the Premier League and all of that because it feels so corporate and a bit, just there's too much money involved with it now. And it just feels a lot less authentic. Whereas you really do get to the heart of it here, in the heart of football, a lot more than you would in the higher leagues.
What do you enjoy most in terms of your day-to-day roles at the football club? You mentioned there are so many of them, but in terms of personal fulfilment, what gives you that buzz?
I think it's knowing that you're serving a purpose to the wider community. So on match days, our attendances have grown massively over the course of the last 5 years. And so you're seeing all these families come in, all these children running around and screaming and having fun, and at the end staying and signing or wanting the players to sign their like autograph books and photos and stuff like that. So just seeing that all these people that we wouldn't usually have expected to come and enjoy themselves is fantastic.
There are so many things that have to happen to put on a game of football in the non-league, so many areas for a club like Horsham to have to consider, from facilities to finance. Sometimes, more often or not, marketing and communications tends to be at the bottom of the list, but actually it's really, really important, isn't it, that a club focuses time, resource and volunteering on that part of the game?
Yeah, it's so important. If you want your club to grow and to be a real sort of that figurehead in the community, then you've got to go out there and engage with people. And the best way at the moment to do that is through social media and just really reinforcing your club identity and ethos as much as you can.
Did you find that you had to spend any time with the board or other volunteers in the club sort of explaining the benefits sometimes? Because for some people it's a bit of a daunting world, or particularly if you are asking for little bits of budget and investment to go into enriching it, it's not quite the same as the manager going and asking for money to sign a player. It sometimes needs a bit more explanation behind it.
Yeah, I mean, not quite. I think when I was brought on board, we were all very similar. We all had the same belief that we wanted to just promote the club as best we can. And I think the way we wanted to do it was, how, despite being a semi-professional club, how can we make it look and feel as professional as possible? And so that's really what we've been trying to focus on through matchday graphics and just high quality photography and brilliant match reports and match highlights, all of that sort of thing, all sort of come and be a part of it. And I think we do a pretty good job. You
do a very, very good job indeed. So on that note then, for anyone watching that sees the output that Horsham has and sees it as an exemplary example of how to do it, what tips, what things can they do to get on their way and aim for that themselves?
Yeah, just engage with the local community. There's no shame in saying we need these people, we need these specific skill sets of people. I mean, what's great is that we've got a couple of university students from the University of Brighton that have come on board the team this year, and they've done a fantastic job demonstrating what they've learned in their university degree, but also just the passion that they've had for the club. So, for instance, we've been able to do matchday commentaries, which we've been wanting to do for a while, but haven't had the manpower or the person power to do it. And they've been able to do it, and it's meant that we've got so many fans that live overseas or just can't make it to games who are able to tune in and feel part of it.
One of my observations at Horsham is that you do a really fantastic job in building a volunteer workforce that feels like a family, that feels like a team. But in particular with the media and press side, it seems like you've done a similar thing as well. You've built a bit of a team with that focus on the media side. How have you gone about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite fortunate that we had quite a few people here that would do match reports and would produce the matchday programme already when I came in. So I was able to use them, and they were really happy to get involved with what I was wanting to do. And as I say, just approaching the colleges as well. We've got Colliers down the road, and a couple of them have come and done some stuff with us as well. So if you get people, if you try and find people that are passionate about football, and let's be honest, you're going to find them, it's the most popular sport after all, then people can be happy to get involved.
Horsham's been a part of your life for a very long time. Do you see yourself carrying on to volunteer in the years to come as well?
I mean, likelihood is yes. It's going to be very hard to give up. I mean, I absolutely love it here. I wouldn't want to be involved in another sort of club or anything like that, because the way we promote family and community is just so important to me personally. Having lost my dad, who brought me to the club all those years ago, it feels to me, I mean, it's why I wear this scarf, for instance. It sort of feels like I'm carrying on that lineage almost.
And you're doing a wonderful, wonderful job, Matt. Final word for anyone watching that thinks, oh, Matt loves volunteering at his local non-league club. I should give it a go as well. What final words of encouragement would you give to them?
Just do it. I mean, there's no harm in giving something a go, and believe me, there's been lots of things that we've done wrong, but they're great learning experiences as well, and we've been able to sort of fine-tune what we do. So if you're passionate about football, and especially non-league football, then yeah, do get involved with your local club.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time. We know it's incredibly precious, and we appreciate all your expertise and words of wisdom, and all the best moving forwards.
Thank you.
Well, that is all we have time for here at Horsham FC. What a remarkable football club. The perfect place to wrap up our series of Extra Time with an NLS lens. It's been wonderful to tour the country, picking up expertise, sharing experiences and taking away plenty of tips as well. I hope that you have found this series incredibly useful and that it will help your club to thrive and sustain in the future as well. But this is not where the support ends. You can join us on our Clubhouse, a free online community full of resources where you can connect with volunteers from across the country, and make sure as well that you subscribe to our Leagues and Clubs hubs on YouTube. That is all we have time for on this episode of Extra Time, but we will be back again very soon. Until then, goodbye.